Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our usual Sunday talk. Allow me to introduce to you Lynda Tilley from our Durban Consulate. Welcome, Lynda. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Yeah, let's highlight those atheist voices, as I said to you just before we started. Women are such an underrepresented demographic in the atheist community. It's always I'm not saying they're not out there, but it's usually the old white men who do the talking, as it is everywhere.
Some quite opinionated ones out there too.
Amazing. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Lynda. How did you, did you grow up in a religion? What was little Lynda's exposure to religion like?
I was born and grew up in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
My mother was very religious, and my father wasn't. He'd go to church for like the Christmases and Easters and things. We left Zimbabwe. I finished my schooling in South Africa, and my mom really became quite fanatical with the religion thing when we moved to South Africa. I think it was her way of sort of coping with having to leave her country and her family behind. And she just, the Christian churches are always there waiting to grab any newcomers or people that are going through tough times.
Yeah.
And she just got so caught up in that and with my father's job, we moved around a lot. So I went to lots and lots of different schools, and we lived in lots of different provinces. Wherever we moved, she always had a ready-made community she could go into. Yeah. And she got into these evangelical, like the Christian-centered churches and that. And, she would always discipline my sister and I with the Bible and with heaven and hell. Whereas my father would discipline us sort of about, what sits right with you in your heart and what you can live with, and about your intuition telling you what's right or wrong. So I had the two sort of sides of that. And I always questioned it. I think you find with a lot of atheists you speak to, we've all had doubts. Things didn't sit right with us from when we were younger. And my father always taught me to not feel that it was wrong to question authority or what I was being taught at school or by people. And he said, just because someone is older than you, like an adult, you obviously have to respect them, but they have to earn your respect and you have to earn theirs. And it's absolutely fine to question authority. Just be polite about it, and don't take everything you hear as fact. With everything in my life, with what I saw in the news and with things I was told at school. So I guess looking at it now, I was sort of raised to be quite critically thinking. And I moved around a lot, lived in different countries. I got to meet different people, and I was exposed to a lot more than a lot of children my own age. So I had experienced a bit more, so I was more open-minded to things. I always questioned it, and I remember my mom took me one day, and she had set up a meeting with the pastor of the church for me to ask him all my questions because she couldn't, and I asked him all my questions, and he gave me the answers, and I just thought, he's an adult and he doesn't know. It still didn't make sense, but I couldn't be rude about it because I was taught to be to my elders. Yeah. So I just thought, I'll have to wait until I'm older one day. And in those days in South Africa, we didn't have internet, and you couldn't go to your school library, certainly not. Or if you went to the town library to look for books, well, there were no books on atheism.
Yeah.
I just knew that the whole God thing didn't sit right with me. Yeah. So, then I left school and I moved to Tanzania, where I lived for most of my adult life. I was there for about 14 years. And it was the first time that I had actually come to know Muslim people. And most of my colleagues were Muslims. I employed Muslim people, and they were my friends. And they were such a lovely, peaceful kind of person. They lived good lives, and they were upstanding members of the community. And I really got to become friends with a lot of the ladies. And I started asking them questions about the Quran and about their beliefs. And I was surprised, I was very young then, at how similar the Christian religion and how so many of the stories are the same. Yeah. And talking to these people made me realize, because I had always been taught Muslims, Islam, it's the bad religion. They're going to go to hell. If you had Muslim friends, you had to convert them to Christianity. Otherwise, you wouldn't see them in the afterlife. They worship the fake God. we worship the right God, fortunately. So it was just discriminating always, and I couldn't believe it. And that we were sort of they're terrorists, you know, all Muslims are terrorists. So you grow up with that fear. And I was thinking, well, these terrorists must be really nice people because they were great. They were lovely people. And speaking to the woman, at the end of the day, all we wanted was the same things. I thought, they're not the same as I do. And they're supposed to be such bad people. We wanted peace. We wanted to have a good future for our children one day, and to be able to have a good healthcare system, and just to be able to not be super wealthy or anything, but just have enough to not always battle. And our morals and things were very much the same. Then we had those bombings in our embassy in Dar es Salaam, and then in Nairobi in Kenya. And then, of course, 9/11, I was in Tanzania living during the time, and I just saw how the whole Muslim community was shattered because they were all targeted, and they were not part of that at all. And then I learned about the different versions of that. And at the same time, I was living in East Africa, where I was being exposed to people who knew the Leakeys and going to the Olduvai Gorge and all those sites. And I had also spent time at Sturkenstein Caves here. And when you see the proof of evolution in that in front of you, when you speak to people who have so much knowledge about it that we were never taught at school, I just thought to myself, because I went through a stage where I was kind of agnostic. I think I didn't believe in a God or Allah, and I had also looked into Hinduism and Buddhism and that, and I just thought, none of this fits right. There must be something that created us. And then, of course, I discovered that we are right underneath our feet. It's mankind's beginnings and these wonderful, wonderful things, and people I could speak to who were researching that. And I thought, if anybody ever needed proof, there is your irrefutable proof. That has proved more to me than the Bible ever did. It's evidence. And so much more is being discovered all the time, and it's just so exciting. And once you understand that, the whole religion thing falls into place, because you realize we were always told there's no dinosaurs in the Bible. It's or anything to do with fossils and things they were discovering, that comes from the devil. You're being tested. One day, all will be revealed, and God will reveal it. And that just wasn't right with me, because I wanted to know. And then you realize that there were no dinosaurs in the Bible, because the Bible was written by man after the dinosaurs went extinct, and they had no way of knowing that. And everything just makes perfect sense. And I think I felt a lot freer then, because I felt that I'd finally sort of found myself. And then I got, actually, we had started, I was living in very remote areas in Tanzania. I was running safari camps on the Northern Circuit. I lived in the Serengeti for many years, and Tarangire National Park and that. So we had satellite phone and two-way radios. Satellite phone was really expensive, so it was only a few years after that that I had full internet access. When I moved, we farmed in the foothills of Kilimanjaro for many years. That's where my kids were brought up. And that's when I actually started researching on the internet for the first time. And that's when I actually, funny enough, came across Atheist Republic. And that was actually, I just thought, wow, I couldn't believe. Then I started learning a lot more about evolution and science. And I remember being amazed that they even wore atheist t-shirts out in the streets. They weren't persecuted for it, and bumper stickers on their cars. And that was my source of knowledge, was Atheist Republic, anything that I wanted to. And then I started joining the Facebook groups. But I must be honest, I always say, I think when you first realize the truth about religion, you become very angry for a couple of years. With some people, that anger never goes away. And I call them angry atheists. I was on the American groups first, and mostly the American groups. And I just found that atheists in general weren't always very nice people. They were always arguing with people. If you have a Christian friend and they happen to post something on your wall, a scripture or something, then you just scroll past it. They would jump all over that person. And I've seen it again now, and even in the South African groups with the vaxxers and the anti-vaxxers. And people argue for hours on social media. And I think, I don't want to waste my energy doing that. There's some people that will never see it. Then I'm becoming like an evangelical pastor that's trying to convert you over to my way of thinking. Some people just don't have the capacity. My mother, who I love dearly, right up until the day she died, was convinced that she had an atheist. My sister also is an atheist. Something she had done in her life where she had obviously sinned, that this was God, and she was such a good woman. Till the day she died, she was devastated that she would never see my sister and I or any of her grandchildren in the afterlife, because my sister and I both raised our children with no religion. And she was devastated that it was something she had done. She was paying for some sin. Right. It was just so sad. And if I couldn't let my own mother, who knew me better than anybody, and she knew what kind of person I was in my heart, and all the community work and work I've always done my whole life, if I couldn't get her to see my way of thinking, her own daughter, who believed in me and everything else I did and supported me. There's some people, I don't know if it's a part of the evolutionary process. It's like, I'm really bad at maths, but I love writing. I'm not good at running, but I'm good. I love doing weight training. So it's still some people maybe just don't have that capacity mentally to grasp the whole thing. And you can't waste your time with that. I would rather sitting arguing for 2 hours with people on an atheist group about something, when I would rather be using that time maybe doing online petitions, so I drifted more over to the humanism groups. And of course, there's a lot of and I just finally found that this is what I've always been. It's called humanism. It's a term that comes from overseas. There's a whole movement with 10 not commandments and things, which I don't agree with. I mean, you can't even pin it down. It is those 10 things that you can't. I think humanism, we've all got a name for it in each African country, Ubuntu, Muntu, whatever. We've all got that. I think we have it inherently as Africans. And I just don't think that, I don't know. Well, I fall under that now because it's easier as well. And the people are nicer. And also, especially in African countries, a lot of people, rather than falling under an atheist group, they fall like in Nigeria, where they're so restricted. Humanism is easier because people aren't quite sure what it is. Rather than seeing devil's child, Satan, they see you as being, well, you're doing good work in the community and everything. So then I realized I've been a humanist since the day I was born, because my good things I did always used to be put down to God, leading a good life and being a child of God. Even now when I do community work, people say, which church do you belong to?
She's such a godly woman.
And I say, I'm not. And I say, but you don't look like an atheist. And I've got tattoos and everything as well, but they still don't think
Lynda, this is so important. There's this stigma around atheists, especially in an African context. People think that, we are, one step away from being witch doctors that sacrifice babies, so, especially the influence of Middle Eastern and Judeo-Christian religions on the African psyche, has really imprinted that concept of evil on them. And when people see atheists like yourself, like doing humanitarian work, and just in general being good people, it really beats down that stereotype. So this is why it's so very important to be, it's not always possible and, practical for everybody in every situation to be open and outspoken about their atheism, but the more people who do it, the easier it's going to become for those that follow us in this journey.
Exactly. It's normalizing it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And people can see that you're no threat, because I think people are very scared of the unknown.
Exactly.
And South Africans especially are quite narrow-minded, and they just kind of stick with what they know, and anything otherwise is seen as being wrong or evil, or you've got ulterior motives. And I know as a single atheist, the women, for some reason, married women are worried that because I'm an atheist, I'm going to want to jump into bed with their husbands. And it's not like I'm an atheist and I drink and I do smoke cigarettes and hop into bed with everyone I see. And it's my morals and the way I live my life are the same as they've always been. When I was a Christian, when I was agnostic, when I was, in between stages, It's who you are. You're either born good or bad. And people say, but there's no afterlife. You've got no rules. It doesn't matter if you go and kill somebody and you're not caught for it, because you're not scared of hell. And people don't understand that gives you. It takes a while, but it gives you every reason to live, because you realize this is your only life. And I just feel so sorry for, like, I see the people in Nigeria now, and even in South Africa, they put up with so much. And you speak to them, and it's because the religious people, they believe that, it's a tough life and we are suffering, but one day we're going to be rewarded because we're doing God's work and we're good Christians or good Muslims. And also, people are getting away with horrible crimes, because if people are at government level and things, and they know that that's hard to sort of apprehend them, they kind of, like, even with the clerk's recent death, some of my friends, and they're all like mourning and everything, and they're like, finally, we've got justice. He's seen his day in heaven now with God, and he's finally got justice for what he did. And I'm like, it's because you are taught to be close-minded about this. It's teaching you to accept horrible atrocities. It's not okay that people go around raping kids and nothing is done about it. And the communities don't lynch those people and get them to a prison and get them tried and sentenced, because it's somebody that's well-known and very wealthy, and he's untouchable, and he's paying bribes to the police or whatever. But it's okay, because one day, he will finally get justice. And then we just accept it and move on. And that's not okay with me. It's making people complacent, and it's making people accept that
there's no justice. There's no justice for victims of any of these crimes if a person is not held to book. You know what I mean? Justice can take many forms. It can be as simple as an admission from the perpetrator to as complex as spending a jail term, and going through a legal trial. But, that's in any kind of, crime, and especially when they're done in the name of religion, people tend to justify it, with this framework of religion, and what it does is it denies the victims their voice. It more or less overlooks them.
It makes crime okay. Like, it's okay to marry a 12-year-old girl in
exactly.
That's pedophilia. Children 12 years old are not meant to be having children. And with girls now who are developing sexually earlier and earlier, the ages are getting younger. You draw the line. And in places like Nigeria, where people, if they blaspheme or step out of line or raise somebody above Prophet Muhammad, they will be beheaded. I mean, there was a 10-year-old child that was in prison for blasphemy. It's ridiculous.
And also,
it's okay.
And also the FGM community, they are exclusively religious.
Yes.
There's I don't think there's any kind of practice of FGM that's not involved in some form of religion, or I might be mistaken. This is not really a field or something that I'm familiar with, but especially in Nigeria and the northern parts of Nigeria, I believe that it's still practiced.
And Kenya has got a big problem, as well.
Yeah.
They have. Kenya Humanists Alliance are doing a lot of work with that. They're actually taking girls out of situations. They've actually got the reputation now where sometimes the families, the mothers and grandmothers, are actually contacting Dance, their president, and saying, my daughter's up for this, please. And he's getting the girls out. And he's doing things through the courts and that, like with domestic abuse and stuff, that women that are ousted from society for things like, or because they've got AIDS or something. He's taking these cases to court. He's following, because it's not acceptable. And, there's just a few of us doing these things in different places. But what really worries me is this evangelical church movement is taking over Christianity across Africa, Pentecostal churches and all these New Age churches, where the pastors are almost seen as wealthy celebrities. And we've got across Africa the superstitious belief of witchcraft. It's in all our countries, and in some countries it's just growing. And in Nigeria, the money rituals thing, where you go to someone and if you want wealth or you want your business to succeed, you have to sacrifice somebody from the family, taking body parts. and it's happening now. Like every second weekend, there's another incident that I now open my newsfeed in the morning. I mean, that people are just being killed for this, and it's the elite, it's the educated, and it's people in positions of power like the government and that are actually also kind of promoting it or doing it themselves. So then it becomes a special thing. And Malawi are trying to write out the Anti-Witchcraft Act, which was put in during colonization. And they are now trying to write it into their law that it is actually, that it is a thing, that you can get tried for witchcraft. So you are actually now making a superstitious magic belief fact. And my concern is that other countries are all going to follow suit. You know,
but you see, Lynda, you know, like this just circles back to me to that initial thing when you were talking about that angry atheist phase. You know, it's like when I look at the results of religion, you know, like what it leaves behind in its wake, the cost that it has on people, you know, these examples that you bring up, you know, like people being unjustly prosecuted, you know, like that is the thing that really fuels my anger, and it sort of like wakes up the anti-theist in me, where I become against, you know, like I'm against religion, not for what it believes, you know, like you know, 60 to 80% of them are completely benign, but it is that cancerous 20% that infects the whole thing and turns it sour, and that's the thing that I am, you know, against.
I feel exactly the same way. It's just, and those few people give the whole religion a bad name. And it's, you know, there are some, I have got lots of Hindu, Muslim, and Christian friends in many countries here. And I don't respect their beliefs and their religion, but I respect them as people. And I've taught my kids the same with their friends too. If I go into Muslim areas, I will still cover my shoulders and I'll never wear like revealing clothing and that. And people say, but you don't even believe in that crap, what do you? And I'm saying, no, it's a respect for their culture and tradition. It's not because I'm now, you know, it's just hard to explain. And the thing is, we're not going to get a secular Africa overnight. We have hundreds of years of indoctrination. The only way I feel we can change is by getting it into our schools, by getting critical thinking programs, and by teaching children to think for themselves, so that by the time they become adults, if someone comes to them and tells them something about the Bible, they will laugh at them as much as we now laugh if somebody tells us about pink elephants flying around in the sky and granting wishes. We say, well, this person's got a mental problem, they need to go and see somebody. It's got to reverse, and it's going to be a slow process. This is the first time I feel there have been this many godless Africans on our continent since the time we were enslaved and we had religion enforced on us. So it's crucial that we are the key people that are taking this forward, and we've got to do it right, because I'm also worried that we're going to start seeing people jumping on the bandwagon with saying that they're part of organizations that they're not. We've already had people saying, how much does it cost to join the Atheist Club? We've had some scams in Uganda with people pretending to be humanists to get funding and they're not, or people that are taking humanist funding perhaps and using it for a Christian school. And we've got to, and I think we're also going to have that extreme atheist kind of element as well, like the angry atheists that we've just got to find a balance somehow, and we've all got to work together because we are all having the same problems. I used to think it was bad in South Africa. As an atheist, it is a cakewalk compared to what people are living with in other countries around Africa. Absolutely, we are so lucky here. We don't realize how lucky we are.
Exactly.
We can just, and also with our LGBT rights, because that I think is another major issue we've got to tackle in Africa. The most persecuted people, I would say, LGBT are more persecuted than atheists, I feel. If you happen to be both, well, you might as well just, you know, that's tickets for you. And I just feel so sorry for these people, because you're born like you are. It's like someone saying to me, but it's wrong that you're straight and you need to go for conversion therapy. And it's like, you can't change the way someone is. And then you also don't believe in God and all that crap. And then you've got, it's terrible, those. And the Muslims have definitely got it worse than the Christians as atheists.
You know, at the end of the day, you know, if I find an LGBT person that is religious, like it's an anomaly.
It is.
They, I
Exactly.
mean, it just goes without saying. I mean, like, look how religion treats LGBT people. There's not a single religion that's either approves or accepts or condones any kind of LGBT behavior. So it's not surprising that LGBT community will be atheists or inclined to no religion. It goes without saying. And I think this also just adds fuel to, because in African culture, it is really a taboo. It's taboo in
Very
African
much
culture.
so. Very much so.
So there's gonna, I think it's going to, it's going to take the same thing that happened in, in the international zeitgeist, so to speak. Like there came like a turning point where the LGBT community just stood up, like in the Stonewall riots in the States, and they just said, like, enough, like, we're here, you have to deal with us, and just started putting it in people's faces. And I think that's a lesson that the atheist community can also learn. Like, there has to be a point where people are not silenced, by a bombastic preacher, or not silenced by a family member, where and this kind of community building that we are doing, where we have like-minded people sharing ideas, it really emboldens and empowers
It really
atheists,
does.
to have these kind of conversations, and it's vital, in my opinion. And that brings us to activism. It's from what I've gleaned online, I can see that you are deeply into your activism. Won't you tell us a little bit about the things that you are involved with?
Well, I never saw myself as being an activist, and people have called me that for a while, and I'm like, I'm not one of those people. I'm not like a freedom fighting activist. But I suppose you could say that. I've always worked a lot with animal rights. I was brought up to view all people as equal. So I really battled when I came to South Africa, because the Black people were so segregated. I couldn't understand that. That affected me very deeply in my late teens. Also because I was in very Afrikaans stronghold areas, where there was a lot of the NG Kerk Church, the Broederbond, and the white supremacists, who were devoted Christians, but yet the way that they spoke about Black people and treated them, and that never sat right with me. What happened is that when I was one of my first jobs, I started in the hotel industry in Magaliesburg for a 4-star hotel, and I was young. I was 20-something, and it was during apartheid. Still, it was the last couple of years, and my white managing director of the company, he was a lay preacher with Rhema Church, very involved, and he would do these big charity drives with all the old bedding and that every year in the hotel. And of course, because I always get on and speak with everybody, I was very upset because our one barman, Petrus Sabanda, had been there for about 20 years. He was still on a 3-month contract. They would just renew it every 3 months. And I didn't like that, because Mzee was an old man, and he should have more job stability and be on a higher salary, because he wasn't a casual laborer. He could have run that whole hotel himself. So I started speaking up for things like that, because I just didn't believe it was right. And he was a Christian, and he was a man with money, and he was older than me, and he was my boss, and he should know better. And then there were a lot of Malawians that were employed there, and he was sodomizing and abusing the Malawians, and they came and confided in me, and he was holding that over their heads with the job. They would be deported. And they were so brave, and they had no one that believed them or spoke to them. And we set up a cassette recorder in the storeroom, and we recorded stuff. And I eventually went where his wife had to know about it and everything. And he did not want his reputation with the church damaged and all of that. But I made sure I went to the owner of the company, and there was someone who'd worked there before me who had also known what was going on, and we got involved. And I became state witness in the Krugersdorp court. I stood there with about 8 Malawians and 2 South Africans, and I couldn't. It was just after apartheid had ended, And it was unheard of for a white to take a white to court over the treatment of black people. And I still remember he came to me and he said, please, will you forgive me? I've asked God for forgiveness. And he said, I've got 3 children and a wife, and you've got to help me. He said, you know, and I'll never do it again and everything. And I said, I'm not withdrawing on any of my statements, and you won't find forgiveness from me. I said, you want me to protect you, your wife and 3 children. I said, I'm representing 10 people behind me here. They've all got children and wives. And, you know, it was horrible. And I was so shocked that someone who was in a position of authority and was a respected hotelier was doing this and getting away with it. And at that stage, it was all white policemen and the white. And I remember my father saying to me, take them for medical treatments after evidence, but don't take them to one of the white doctors. Take them to one of the doctors in the locations, because, you know, they're all in cahoots and everything. And I just didn't, this was all new to me, because that was my big wake-up call. And then from then onwards, I always just realized that if I've got a voice and I can help people, it's wrong what people were doing. So that was a big thing with me with the Rhema Church as well, because they forgave him and took him back into their fold. And before the court case was over, he actually committed suicide. So we never saw justice, but I still felt we had justice. And then in Tanzania, I was there for such a long time, and we ran, my husband at the time, we ran camps there, and we were there for ages. And then we started seeing that they were starting to employ South Africans into Tanzania. And we were very concerned because the South Africans don't really treat black people nicely at all. I think this is the most racist country I know, especially in those days. And I remember having a choice of 3 camp management couples that I had to choose from, and they were all religious Afrikaans whites. And I don't want to be biased, but I just said to them that doesn't work in Tanzania like it does here. You treat everybody equally, you treat everybody respectfully. And of course, and I also told my staff, you don't take shit from these people just because they're your bosses. They're not allowed to treat you like this. They're not allowed. And then when one of the chefs was being abusive to them, I got them to go to the labor court and what I did is we put into place there no expatriates. All the jobs in the camps and lodges have to go to Tanzanians that have worked in those jobs and know the lodges and the wildlife better than any South African or someone from the UK going in there that has never been in Africa. Yeah. And my husband and I we said, give us a chance. We've got good Tanzanians we want to put into these camps. And then the next thing was negotiating salaries, because they were like, okay, well, and we said, no, but you're going to be saving money by not paying expat airfares. So you've got to pay them the same salary in US dollars with offshore. And so we got that into place. And I now believe that most camps and lodges, you won't go into anywhere you'll see white people running them places. It's all Tanzanians. And I like to think that we put a partner. And my ex-husband, we're still really close. And we were together for 18 years. He was also Zimbabwean, and he's farmed there for the last 25 years. He's been there now. And his thing is making sure that Tanzanian farmers get the prices that the markets command, that they're not being undercut by overseas companies. Yeah. And he also does a lot of work there for promoting local farming methods and working with local communities and that. So we did a lot of good together as a couple. And it's so I've always and then I've done a lot of work with animal rights in Durban, with the underground dog fighting and raising awareness with that. I volunteer for Titan Pit Bull rehabilitation in Waterfall with the Cooper family. They're a Christian family. They're a lovely family. They always tease me and say, oh, you're a child of God. And I say, you're just a humanist. We've only got God, and we work together just fine. That's community work that I do.
I love that you are so outspoken about these things. Like I can see that when you're passionate about something, it burns like a fire in you. And I mean, like, especially the way that you make these posts about this case in Nigeria in the Kano state with Mubarak Bala, that atheist that's been imprisoned. How long has it been now?
It will be on the 28th of April. It'll be 2 years.
2 years.
Yes. Now, he was someone that I became friends with on the humanist groups in Nigeria. And
Right. Before his arrest, obviously.
We never spoke like one-on-one.
Yeah.
We were just, you chat in group chats and that.
Yeah.
And we had just gone into lockdown in South Africa. I took my kids and all my animals, and we went for 6 weeks on lockdown to help with the pit bull rehab so that they had staff on site there because we weren't allowed to move anywhere. And I wasn't online a lot because we didn't have reception out there. And I remember just seeing on my phone when I went one night that he had been taken, and I was in shock. And everyone was like, what's happening? Because there were a whole lot of us there. They've taken one of us. They can't do this. They can't do this. And they're like, what do you mean one of us? Who? Mubarak? What? I was outraged because now it was close to home. It wasn't just something happening in West Africa. It's obviously just a terrorist, or it's a bad person, just leave them. This was Mubarak Bala, who has done so much good and is known around Africa. And I just thought that this can't be. And then I got involved with that. And then, we had all that looting and all that nonsense going on here in South Africa, which took our time for so long. I was in Durban in the middle of it. I was in a no-go zone with all that going on around us. And I was thinking to myself, why are none of the other African countries coming to help us? I don't know what's going on here. And I was getting feedback from friends in Kenya and Tanzania, and they were saying they're not getting the full story in that. Meanwhile, at the same time, Nigeria, we had the Phoenix massacre. They had the Lekki massacre. We had police that were supposedly not supposed to be using live rounds, and they were. Nigeria had the same thing. We had a discrepancy with bodies in the mortuary. They also had the same thing, although theirs was much worse than ours. We don't know what's going on in each other's countries. And I just realized then, and I thought we have to help. Nigeria is our wealthiest country. I mean, all their resources have just been stripped away from the people, and they rank 9th worldwide for their energy resources, and they don't even have 24-hour electricity. And people are just, there's so much corruption, and I just thought we have to help because it's Islam, it's this whole Islamification of Africa, it's Boko Haram, it's all the things that Mubarak stood against, because he said if it carries on like this, it's going to pull Nigeria completely back into the dark ages, which it already is. In the 2 years that I've been very involved there, I've seen all the new restrictions coming in there on people. They had Twitter banned, and then they had all the good people, like the Revolution Now movement, the Biafra movement for Biafra State, and all the people that are speaking the truth are the ones that are being accused of terrorism and put into prison, and they're just trying to keep them silenced. And it's just terrible. And I just think that we should all be, because that is where Islam is growing the fastest. You've got the Arab influence coming in. We have very bad preconceived ideas about Nigerians, and it's not just here, it's all over the continent. Nigerians are seen as being scammers, drug dealers, or terrorists. Right. They take the worst of the country, and I think it's been propagated by the media worldwide. Even in the UK, you see a Nigerian there, he's a drug dealer or whatever. That's a very small proportion of who the Nigerian people are. Every country's got good and bad, every race has got good and bad. You can't base your whole opinion. I haven't had a lot of support in South Africa because people think somehow I'm involved with terrorism or drugs. I must be in with the Nigerians now dealing drugs or something, because now my mind is gone completely, because now I'm supporting a black Arab. You see, there are Nigerians just like you and I there, and they are such strong people, and they have got no one to help them. We can't rely on the UN and overseas, because they're all corrupt and in bed with the governments. I take great exception to the fact that as an African, I have to go begging to United Nations to get chronic meds to an African. What about the Black Lives Movement? Then they turn it on when it suits them and turn it off when it doesn't. It's not right that as Africans, we're relying on them to monitor our human rights, because they're not doing their job properly. There's a genocide of Christians going on there. And the thing is, Buhari and Ramaphosa have just signed deals together. They've united our countries. It's agreements.
No, I saw that they were shaking hands and making a big deal out of it.
It is shocking. We are inviting terrorism in through our front door. he says we are going to be uniting the countries and we're brothers and sisters, but yet they don't want the Nigerians or the Zimbabweans. I'm a Zimbabwean. I happened to move here during the apartheid era, so I've got a different kind of permit because I'm white. So I don't have to worry about being a Zimbabwean, which is also unfair.
Yeah.
Our skills are all leaving the country. People are desperate for work. What kind of people are we that we are saying to our neighbors, go back home, you foreigners?
Yeah.
Their kids are starving. The Nigerians you speak to here, they say they'll take our looting and the xenophobia and any day over being sent back to Nigeria.
Exactly. You know, it always struck me how you know, they always complain that our borders are so porous, everybody just pours in, you know, but at the end of the day, what are we doing? You know, they complain that the foreign influence of you know, Zimbabweans, Nigerians, which are the two most prominent ones that they always mention, you know. But I mean,
Yes.
even Mozambique and Botswana, all of those borders are extremely porous. You know, people pour in, but you know, my problem is just you know, we don't even have a system that cares for the local people who are in need of welfare. You know, so you know, even it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference if you don't even have one single border post up. You know, it's like you've got to start you know, somewhere, you know. But
just as humans, and you know, like Nigeria,
humans, yeah, that's the thing. You know, it's like,
desperate.
how can you turn another human away from, you know, from who's in need, you know? And I mean, the people in Africa are not running from this or that. They're running from terrorists. They're running from starvation. You know, they're running from you know, it's humanitarian crises that people are running from, you know, trying to escape.
And why are they the only option is to go to the US or to the UK, and that's not right.
Yeah.
I mean, Mubarak was trying to he was trying to get asylum, and he was having his visas refused all the time. He was like a frog in a bucket. I've seen heartfelt videos of women crying because they've been gang raped by Boko Haram and they're trying to get out and they're worried about the children and they can't get into overseas countries.
Yeah.
I've said, can't we please just take the children from Nigeria? If you're worried about the adults here and taking over jobs and being here without them, just what kind of people are we if we can't just take the children and look after the children for them?
Yeah.
I've offered all my Nigerian friends asylum here at my house in Durban. A whole lot of them can come here if they need to get to a safe place. I've said to them, just send your kids. Send your kids. And if you can't get permits, we'll find a way of moving you through the borders. There are ways of doing it. Because how can I just sit back when I know what's going on and not offer to help? Oh, it's the West, it's West Africa. It's not me. It's not my problem. The problem is that it's not our problem. But if we let Nigeria, what's happening in Nigeria, take over, it's going to move from there to the next country to the next country.
Exactly. You know, it's like
you're going to have them knocking on the door with the Sharia law and the Quran.
Exactly. It's like we're holding a litmus strip, or like you say, a measuring thing, and you know, if it starts there, it's going to, you know, how things run in Africa. You know, if it starts in one place, it spreads all over. Yeah.
And quickly as well.
You know, like I definitely see how you know, to circle back to how religion impacts this continent. You know. I always asked myself, you know, like what kind of an Africa would we have today if it wasn't for you know, the way that the Europeans and the Arabs have plundered and harvested the resources of this continent, you know, because in my opinion, religion really has had a negative impact on this continent. You know, it's stripped an entire identity away from people. You know, people consider themselves Christians or Muslim before they consider themselves African. You know, it's very sad to me.
They're going towards witchcraft and money rituals and things. It's maybe deep down, maybe religion doesn't sit right with people, even though they don't know it themselves, because it's not our natural belief. It breaks my heart to see people that using the things that our slave masters taught on this continent and are using it on each other, and it's only dragging us further backwards. We as a continent should be working together. We'll always have our problems, and you'll always have your little breakout wars and things. It's not going to be just one big happy family. But I always knew, as a Zimbabwean, Nigeria, for example, was very, very important because it was our oil, and there was already infiltration coming in from Arabia and that. So Nigeria had to be looked after. Like, everyone had to pull together, and a lot of land had to be put under agriculture, because we knew that Nigeria's got so much agricultural land. Africa would never go hungry. With Zambia and Zimbabwe, we had already started putting tobacco farms under crop farming, because people had heard America were making a thing about cigarette smoking and it might be banned, and we'd already started planting things there. So there was things in place, and the propaganda, and then then Rhodesia was the least racist country of all. South Africa was the worst, and we knew we had to get South Africa back into black power, but not to Robert Mugabe, because he had outside backing, and with the Chinese involvement, with the Shona people especially.
I think Uncle Bob just lost the plot somewhere.
And my father said, "You will never be able to come back to Zimbabwe. It will be a different Zimbabwe." Yeah. I mean, that was 50 years ago. I was born in 72. I can't relate to an average Zimbabwean person today, because they don't even know what it used to be like. Yeah. And they told a very one-sided view of what it was like there. And we knew that South Africa would be next because of the influence here with stuff. And we should all just be helping each other and working together as a continent. The only thing we should be fighting for as Africans are things like getting all our artifacts back, getting our correct history written, and all the rubbish and the shit that the whole world believes out. Yeah. And what I love about science is that science is proving now that our history is a lie, that Africa was the most advanced, that we had so much here. People might have looked at Africans and thought they weren't advanced, but we were advanced in different ways that are going to aid our survival one day, not their ways like art and architecture and all that. Yeah. I'm really going to get into that discussion, because I'm so angry about that and about what that's done. And we have been told we're stupid, we're not as good, we're not as advanced, we can't do as well, we don't get on with each other. We've got different religions, different colors, it's not like that at all. And people now believe it. You tell someone something, you reinforce that their whole lives. They now believe it. They believe they're stupid. They believe it's DNA is now proving the links with Egypt to the start of African civilization. And it's fascinating. I'm part of the WikiTree genealogy project, the transatlantic slave. We're trying to build one family tree and trace every slave back to the ports they left from, and it's bigger than, I mean, they've discovered there was a second slave trade that's not even known about. Yeah. But for anybody out there that's interested, and I keep saying to all my black friends, go and put I know it's a Wazungu thing, but go and put what you know into the family tree, because I know a lot of our cultures, you don't get birth certificates, it's traditional births and that. We've got to try and connect everything so that people can get connected back to where they're from. And that, to me, is so exciting, because maybe that will be the breakthrough that we need for people. But you see, you still get the people that are indoctrinated. They won't believe the DNA result. They won't believe what they're being told, because it's from the devil. It's Western lies. It's lies from the West.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy, eh?
You know the truth. So anyway, so I'm passionate about it.
This is the thing, like religion, in my opinion, just creates this. It's like a petri dish, that's, and we as humanity, we come and we plant ourselves here and there, and it just creates a fertile ground for everything that's wrong with us to bring that out. Like we are. Like you said, we're still early in our evolution, so we are like a couple of chromosomes away from being angry apes that hit one another, So,
exactly.
So now if you throw religion on top of that, it brings out the worst in people, because as Africans especially, and as humanity in particular, we are essentially tribal. You know, like we've learned through evolution that if we stick together as tribes, we survive. You know, but
Yes.
the downside to being tribal is that it puts people against one another. You know, like there's tribe A against tribe B. You know, and religion really works well in those environments, especially if it's two different religions. Then it's an enemy, and the next thing it's a religious war, and then and you know, I don't know.
No, it is.
I think the continent, you know, if you take away religion, you know, like you will lose immediately intolerance. You know, a very big deal of intolerance will disappear. Ignorance about the world, you know, like religion keeps people ignorant, it keeps them
It
intolerant,
does.
and it just you know, keeps people living in fear. You know, like who wants to spend their entire life living in fear? You know, and you've got to love and revere something that you also fear. You know, like it's an incredible. I always like to call it the manacles that your mind forges. You know, I can't remember exactly who coined the phrase, but it's it keeps the mind in a prison. So yeah. So Lynda, I always like to ask people, you know, like to reflect on their life in hindsight. You know, like, and knowing what you know now, what would you say to a younger version of yourself? You know, like maybe take it back like two decades or 3 decades ago.
I think, like with everything in life, I would just try and say, just look at the facts.
Yeah.
Like, I've got something so amazing that I want you to know about, but you're not going to believe it because it sounds so outlandish. But let me show you the facts and proof. And also, I think I have become like I have because I've needed these. I mean, 25. I've been godless for 25 years. I've needed that because I've been through so many. I've been through so much that I've learned from firsthand experience, and I've lived in different places in Africa with different religions and with irreligious and with people that just practice religious beliefs, their own ethnic, their own cultural practices.
Yeah.
I've seen the same cultural, ancestral belief system all across Africa, but yet the people don't even talk the same language or know each other. That's something I can't explain, because how can someone in Kenya have a similar tradition to someone in Nigeria that has a similar, they don't talk, they're not on the internet, they're not connected, but yet there's something, I think people take it as being spirits in that. I think it's something to do with intuition or a sixth sense or a connection to what people have misconstrued as being the spiritual world or whatever. It's something to do with, I don't know, inherent to our survival one day. That's going to be, I mean,
there's definitely an evolutionary aspect to it. You know, like the people who had this kind of instinct were the ones who survived. You know, the ones who didn't have this kind of instinct were the ones that the lions caught on the savannah.
Weaker. And I think the more we unite as godless, we'll stick together in our groups. You know, like if you have a business, you'll employ atheists. If someone needs help, you'll and then eventually you'll start having relationships and getting married, and then you'll start having children together. So your children you'll eventually have a situation where you are, hopefully genetically, you are humanist people. I think you are born with a good heart or not. You can learn to be good, you can learn to do service, and you can hone what you do to be better at it. But you cannot essentially teach somebody morals. There's a dog that needs water, it's in the hot sun. It's an intuitive thing you do. If you have to give someone a book and say, this is what you must do this, and they've got to learn it, and then they forget, but does the dog need water or does this? That's just a very basic example. It's something that
the Bible says here in chapter 4, verse.
And wherever you go, even if you don't speak the language, I know who my people are because we speak the same language of our hearts. You know how you like someone or you don't, or you get a funny feeling about someone, or you think, he's a real dick or whatever, or she's nice or whatever. it's how it is with people that are really, you just know them. And the amazing thing is that I've been able to pick it up from just talking with someone on Messenger or something for a long time, and with profile photos which aren't even of the person, it's maybe like of a flower or something. You can really pick up the people that are the same as you, but you don't know. All you basically know is their gender. You don't know their name. You don't know their background. You don't know anything about them. But you can pick up through not even knowing who you're speaking to what kind of a person that is. And then when you meet them and get to know them, you realize that. I don't know, people are just like, oh, Lynda's obviously on the Nigerians drugs, coming out with all these weird things. Because I was also saying to someone the other day, do you think that evil is genetic? I can't believe the evil I see around me. And it's getting worse and worse and worse, and people have got no conscience about the crimes they're committing. And they all, there's more and more, and the children are like that, and the parents are like it, and everybody. And I'm like, is it a genetic thing? Are we going to be able to breed it up? And then I thought, we have been come off very lightly with COVID on this continent. Yeah. We really have, for our poverty levels and for all the people that are vaccinating. And I just thought to myself is that I actually put a poem out there a while ago on Facebook because I was getting so sick of all the arguing going on in the groups. I basically said to the atheists, don't worry about the fact that people aren't taking the vaccines, because obviously people who are dying from COVID, something genetically, we have these pandemics, and it sounds really way out, but people die off because those genes, the strongest genes, are going to go through to the next to carry on producing. There might be a time in 100 years' time where some other new virus comes out and it would have wiped everybody out, but now we've bred that gene out. And I think it's got something to do with the brain, because
it's a dark thought to entertain. It's a dark thought to entertain, but it is the truth. It's unfortunately it's the reality, And you can think back to just the beginning of the century. We also had plagues and things. The beginning of the previous century, we had plagues here in South Africa, and it really wiped out a good portion of the population. And
it's natural selection. And the Africans, we're surviving. We are not we are just thriving. And I mean, I don't know what it's like in Cape Town, but no one's, for months now, we're in the taxis without masks. People are not going to the shops. I forget I've got my mask on. I don't have a mask. And I know very few people who've had it. I don't know anyone who's died from it. Obviously, everything's different. But the thing is that there's got to be something there. Africa's where we all originated from. We've always been the strongest with the strongest genes. I think legacy genetics, how many Africans there are worldwide, despite 15 million minimum being taken off our continent. And most of the men were castrated because they didn't want the genes to flourish. But look how many Africans there are all over the world, despite that. There's something about us.
I also think we're lucky, we're lucky with, in Cape Town, we've actually had quite a serious outbreak, and so did they in Johannesburg, But I think we are first of all, we are lucky that we're not on major international trade routes. We do get some international traffic through it, but I mean, like if you compare it to somewhere like Europe, where it's everybody from Asia travels through Europe, they have to stop the plane there somewhere to refill,
And our tourist market has gone dead. So we haven't had foreigners. I'm talking about America and England and Europe, guys, not Zimbabwe and Nigeria and Malawi. Those aren't the foreigners, the real foreigners. We haven't had foreigners coming in here and all that. Although we have had our own version of Omicron. I don't even follow it, that we've now shipped over to the rest of the world. But I just think that there must be something in it, that genetically our genes are very strong, and that's we aren't dropping like flies.
Children of Africa are strong. People look at us, children who are born in Africa are strong.
Absolutely.
They firstly, they have to be strong in order to survive, and secondly, they it's part of evolution. People.
It is.
Have to be strong to live on this continent.
And there's so much sanitation and everything, like in the UK. Everything is just, you don't even see insects there at night when the windows are open in summer. You can go for a whole month in England and not even see a snake. It's just weird. It's just not normal. And then, like my kids are running barefoot and eating stuff that's off the floor, and they're like, and it's just, I guess that our children do build up a good immune system here, and we can handle things more. But I like to think that it's because it's something to do with long term or our evolution as people. So.
That's true.
Anyway, so.
Well, Lynda, it's been great. It's been great having a chat with you. I feel like we could sit and talk for hours, but
I can talk for days and days. Does anyone let me get you on WhatsApp with voice notes? You do this every Sunday with different people.
Yes, we try to have one weekly. So we've recently started doing African languages as well. So we will have one English. We've finally settled on four languages now. So we're going to do Afrikaans, we're going to do English, and then we are going to do Sesotho and isiZulu. So I still need to finish, just to connect with Nkolisi to finish
our best friends here. We've been friends for years, and we've never met. We've only ever. He's amazing. He really is.
Yeah.
And I mean, also, I'm sure in some of the freer countries like Zambia and which ones, there are people that I know you've had Dr. Leo Igwe on here, but if there are atheists like Malawi, wonderful Makuchi from Malawi, and we've got Dan.
Out there. This is the thing. You can search. You just need to search and you find them. There's atheists in every single country.
Because it helps us to connect and bridge that gap. Yeah. And I feel we as South Africa are now to like Nigeria what America was to us 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Atheist literature. I've been sending all the books, Why There Is No God, and all the humanism books, and a lot of atheist literature, books on evolution, and just being able to talk to people, and they ask questions, and what's it like in your country, and atheists are so alone and stigmatized there, and even if you can just get chatting to someone or go onto one of the Nigerian groups, Atheists of Lagos, another very good friend of mine, he's also said I must give his name out. Him and I are working at the moment with a Christian who was working with us on the sly for Mubarak, but he didn't want it known because his family are very involved with the Christian church. And he was abducted and taken on the 31st of December. And we suddenly realized he wasn't answering. We were supposed to be launching this big website for Mubarak campaign. And of course, it took two of us, myself and a Nigerian friend and a friend of his from America, 9 or 13 days to trace him where he is now. And he's also just been taken. People are being taken all the time for speaking out because elections are coming up next year, you see. So they've got to silence all the people that they can. So we've got so many people that were so excited to hear that they were going to get a mention. Do you know, we've even got atheist groups in South Sudan and Ethiopia, where they will message me or I'll send them literature like the Freedom of Thought report that comes out every year, that Humanists International do, any new rules and laws and things coming out or big cases going on in Africa, and they just give me the silent thumbs up because they obviously can't get involved openly. A lot of the groups can't. But those that can, will. And I think that if we as South Africans can be free with saying we're atheists and we still have freedom of speech here, we need to speak up for the countries that can't speak up for themselves because they will be persecuted for it. And sometimes it's important to talk to somebody who's got a few questions and to know you're not alone. We are also here and we also have battled and been through things. That the emotional support is really, really, really key, I think.
Yeah, I'm so passionate about that aspect of it, the community building aspect. There's such solidarity if you find yourself within a minority group, and you recognize somebody else from that same minority, and there's an instant bond, and you feel immediately like you are validated and that you belong somewhere, and we who have the opportunity need to be that place where people who are ostracized in their countries and in their communities, where they can fall and they can connect with somebody and they can feel like they belong somewhere. It's such an important aspect of being an atheist community, is just to be open and available to talk to people.
And you're so right. Absolutely. And just being there for them. And people say to me in other countries, they've got so many problems and they can't tell their families, and they're getting persecuted for this and that and everything, and they get really down about it. And there's some people that they almost get suicidal, and what hope is there for me? I'm an atheist. There's no hope in my country. There's no hope for anything, and now I'm not even going to be able to live a normal life because I'm now being harassed by people. I just say to them, it's like with anything in life, surround yourself with positive, like-minded people. Just get onto a group. You can go right into a group chat and you're immediately at home. You're not going to have someone judging you for what you're saying. And I used to find that when I was in Tanzania and I was surrounded by Mungu Saidia, God protecting you and all that all the time. And it would do my head in, and I would just go onto a group and I would just feel like, oh, there are still some sane people in this world. And an hour or so of that, when you hear about something and you get involved with this and that, it would just give me a boost, and it would make me feel I can carry on going on, So it's so important that we are just there as a listening voice and that for them. And definitely. And if anybody wants to I will maybe send you the links that you can put on this after.
I'll put it in the description. That was going to be my next question, actually, is where can people find you on social media or any of the platforms that you care to recommend or promote?
Okay. We've got, the group that we're all on now at the moment is the Free Mubarak Bala, which I'll give you you don't have to be a member to join, because a lot of people also don't want to have to sign up and put their names there, because they don't want anyone to know that they're supporting him, because they could be lynched.
Exactly. They want to remain anonymous,
you can this is anonymously.
Yeah, this is something that we forgot to highlight initially. There's some people who want to use social media anonymously, and they don't want to participate because they have this fear of having their anonymity broken. So it's so important that that people can find these communities where they can participate anonymously, like you said.
Yes, a lot of people have said they'd rather watch this on YouTube and not live, because there's no way that anything can connect them to having watched it, which is really sad. It's people like you and I that don't have the same rights. It's like a mother, a normal, active person like me or you have to now be too scared about what we're going to go on social media or what we're going to have on our hard drive. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. It's so unfair, and it's all down to religion. So Mubarak Bala, then you can see, and there's all people from all over on there. Nigeria really, really needs, if there are anything, the atheists community in South Africa, if you want to do something that within a few days you'll feel like you've done more as an atheist than you've done all your time here. There's thousands and thousands of atheists that are just so desperate to connect and to have their support. The advocacy for alleged witchcraft, that's all to do with the religious Pentecostal church here, especially that kind of spin-off from that. There's pastors now doing cleansing rituals and exorcisms, and of course it's all more money for them. Dr. Leo Igwe is looking for advocates in every country, and in South Africa, witchcraft is why we don't hear about it. A lot of our police and court systems, they're superstitious. They don't want to get involved with the witches, There's so much you can do in any African country. Critical thinking programs that we're getting in. Dr. Igwe is getting into some of the Nigerian primary schools. He needs support with that as well. We need to look at getting that kind of thing into South African schools and working together. Uganda have got their humanist schools. They're flying under the radar of the government there. They have got amazing things. Eaglesview Primary School in Jinja in Uganda. Fantastic young guy, Rogers, has got such an amazing vision. And I'm starting to sound like a pastor guy. Such a vision for God. He's doing so much there. And Uganda have been they're under terrible rule at the moment, and it's just they've got such a high percentage of most young children there, and they've been out of school for nearly 2 years. Their government just stopped their schooling, which is also a way of suppressing the people. And he's doing such good work. There's so many people you can connect with and make a difference there, even if it's just sending them, if there's any teachers in South Africa, and they've got teaching material or science. Mind you, our science in South Africa is pathetic, isn't it? But I mean, really like interesting stuff like to do with evolution and that, and anything. There's so much you can just help someone and change something for them. They all need support. Malawi needs support because they're going to put this witchcraft thing in. And they're already having prayers for rain and everything instead of actually solving problems and that. And it's just, I just want to bang my head against the wall sometimes. But there, you look at everything, it's overwhelming. You can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do everything. I found with activism, I've got to pick what I'm passionate about.
Yeah, and focus in on one thing,
They wanted me to do security jobs and take over the face for Yulin with the Chinese and this because I was passionate and I was getting results. But I said, it's like a doctor. You can't be a gynecologist and a cardiologist you've got to specialize and you've got to feel to be effective. And there's so much out there that we can help with as well. So
exactly. That's my thing as well, you know, is because you get overwhelmed, you know, like there's so much that you can, you know, you'll be doing this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you know, 31 days a month, and you won't have any time for yourself, you know. So find one thing that you are especially passionate about, focus in on that, and then, you know, just treat the rest as white noise.
Exactly.
You know,
and start in your own community. Exactly. You start and you look after you where you are now, and then you carry on. I mean, we don't even get on with our neighbors. Now you're trying to get people to get on with people on the other side of the continent. But you just have to, at the end of the day, it's all the good people sticking together. And just because our governments aren't going to be the ones that unite us. It's the people like us with the good hearts, the critical thinking, science-minded people that are going to be the ones that say, really, we don't discriminate. We don't care if you're gay or straight. We don't care about the color of your skin. We don't care that you used to belong to this religion or this cult or whatever. We just want to get down and get the job done and we also know it's going to take a long time. It's not going to happen in my lifetime. It's not going to happen in my children's lifetime. It's not going to happen in their children's lifetime. But we have to make a start. And we are the first people to be doing this. And the first people to do anything, it's always hard. You're beating through this wild bush path. And you've got to cut the way and clear the path. And you're going to have potholes, especially in Africa, lots. And you're going to have snakes on the road. And you're going to have, lots of snakes too, all sorts of things. But eventually, the people that come behind you and the people behind them will have a nice way to go. You've got to do that. And you can't just leave it up to someone else to do or think, what can I do in my little part of the world? I can't do anything. I'm not going to do anything at all. Every single thing you do makes a difference. It really does. It does. And I just,
Amazing. Lynda, it's really been so inspiring to talk to you. You know, you really fire me up. I want to get involved.
No, well, I'll definitely, and you do this every Sunday, so that's really nice. And I'd love to see more African atheists from around the continent coming on here too, and then all connecting. Exactly. And you must come over to.
The thing with our StreamYard is we've been treating Durban basically like the stepchild, because we're only streaming in the 3 biggest cities, because our StreamYard account only goes to 3. You know, we can only put 3 specific cities.
Are you discriminating? What about East London?
What I'm definitely going to do is I'm going to alternate one of the Gauteng cities with Durban. You know, so I'll alternate.
Yes.
You know, 2 of them. So 1 week it'll be Joburg and Durban, and then, you know, Pretoria.
Have you done Durban? You haven't done Nash, and have you done any of the Durban people? I don't think you have.
I think we've done one before. I'm not exactly sure. Right? Don't hold me to it. I'm sure that we've.
And we need more female atheists as well. Galen Cornelius, she's in Joburg now. Renee. There are lots of There are. I'm lying when I say I don't know African atheists, personally females, but there's some wonderful
and look,
female.
like we put the invitation out. Like I've done it in the Facebook groups. If you want to host your own little episode with you want to talk to the atheist of your choice and just have a conversation about life, the universe, and everything in between, reach out to us. Message us on Facebook and say, this is an atheist. I would love to have a talk with them, and we'll schedule it. We'll produce it behind the scenes. You can come on and you can talk to your favorite atheist about whatever you want to. Let's normalize atheism, and let's get the voices, those voices that nobody, because we can't know every single person involved in the atheist movement from our aspect. So we have to rely on people to recommend an interesting person, or to bring up a person that they think has an important story to tell, or something that people can relate to.
Yes.
And the invitation is out there. Like if you know some kick-ass atheist that does amazing work, by all means reach out to us. We'll schedule it, and you can have a talk, and you can showcase them, you can feature them, you can feature the work that they do. We are all for that, involving community.
That's great.
In the community.
Lots of African countries, fantastic people doing great work out there. Yeah. Really nice. And also, I know that it's very anonymous if people want to remain anonymous, and if someone wanted to contact
you can switch your camera off on this. Like if you don't want to show your face, you can switch your camera off. As long as people can hear your voice, you're good to go. We understand. We know what the deal is.
You're connected now. Obviously, just explain to the people that the Atheist Republic, which I think is the biggest atheist group in the world, isn't it? It's in all our countries.
The largest community of atheists in the world. Yeah. So we've got, we have got consulates in so many different countries. I mean, just visit the Atheist Republic website. Just search for it in Google, and you'll find the Atheist Republic website, and you'll see every single country on earth is represented, even in the countries where atheism is banned. It's there. It's there as well. This is a very comment. Somebody says it's hard being involved. How many jobs I've lost, or being outcast for expressing atheist views. This country is so backwards in so many different ways, and that this breaks my heart to hear. It's just because there's a stigma, and that stigma needs to go. I get so angry when I see messages.
I do. We're just the kind of people who should be in places like that. I never get voted onto like school boards or get involved with it's not, you're just not. They're the last people you want there. We are the people who should be there. And it's just
exactly because we get shit done. Like this is me as well. I get shit done.
And also we're not exclusive. We include everybody, and we understand. I know we have to work with the Christians and the Muslims and everybody, and you all have to get on and just do your own thing. But it's the same thing with such good workers and people. We need people that are not corrupt in that, and that have got good hearts, and that aren't going to be paid off by the church to get into good positions in less developed countries.
On that note, like when we like I'm gonna finish us out now. Just stay in the stream, like don't log up, because I need to discuss something with you, just with regards to activism and getting involved afterwards. So let's wrap it up there. Lynda,
yes, let's do that.
It's been. It's really been a very informative talk. You're so passionate about activism. It's very hard to listen to you and not to get fired up and want to get involved.
I want to come with those as a Christian, with those evangelical people on the pulpits.
Amazing.
Praise the Lord. Woo. I think it's rubbed off on me a bit, hey? No.
Cool, man. Like stay in the stream. I'm going to connect with you now, and then we'll get all our details shared. Thanks, Lynda.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.